The sun had set, casting a deep orange glow through the sheer curtains of our living room, where I sat clutching a family photo that felt heavier in my hands than it ever had before. The laughter and warmth that once filled this space had been replaced by a suffocating silence, each corner echoing the absence of my husband. I could still smell the lingering scent of his cologne, a bittersweet reminder of what I had lost. As I traced the outline of his face in the picture, memories flooded back. His laughter, his comforting touch, the way he always knew how to make everything feel right in our chaotic lives. But that day, all I felt was the sharp sting of grief mixed with an unsettling sense of rejection. Just then, the front door creaked open, and I could hear Ethan's footsteps. My heart raced as I braced myself for our inevitable confrontation. I had hoped for solace, perhaps even a shared moment of grief, but instead he stormed in, his face twisted with anger. "You're useless now," he spat, the words slicing through the air like a knife. My breath caught in my throat, the reality of his declaration crashing down on me. I had expected compassion, a bond strengthened by shared loss, but instead I was met with this cruel betrayal. My vision blurred as I fought back tears, feeling the walls of our relationship crumble around us. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, each repetition a reminder of my perceived failure. How had we reached this point? I thought of the countless times I had put his needs above my own, the sacrifices I made, believing that my love would be enough to bridge the growing gap between us. But now I was left questioning everything, my worth, my identity, and the very foundation of our once loving relationship. The weight of my grief felt heavier with every breath, and I wondered how I would navigate this new reality. As I sat there, the silence enveloping me once more, I realized that I had two choices: to succumb to the darkness of despair or to fight back, to reclaim my voice amidst the chaos. I could not let Ethan's words define me. I had to find the strength to confront this pain head-on, to show him that I was not just a shadow of my former self. It was time to rise from this unexpected disappointment and prove that I was still worthy of love, even in the face of such betrayal. The kitchen was a flurry of activity, the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting through the air, mingling with the faint scent of the floral arrangements from the memorial service. I stood at the kitchen table, my fingers tracing the smooth surface, feeling the coolness beneath my touch. My mother, Margaret, was bustling about, her warm presence a comfort yet a reminder of the void left by my husband. She hummed softly, trying to lift the heavy atmosphere that hung over our home like a thick fog, yet it only accentuated my sense of loss. Ethan, my son, sat at the table, his brows furrowed as he scrolled through his phone. The silence between us was palpable, a chasm that widened with every passing moment. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap that seemed insurmountable, but the words stuck in my throat, heavy and unyielding. My heart raced as I recalled the harshness of his words from the funeral, a declaration that felt like a dagger to my heart. "You're useless, Mom," he had said, his voice laced with anger and frustration. I had stood frozen, the world around me fading as I absorbed the impact of his betrayal. I attempted a casual approach, trying to lighten the mood. "Ethan, how about we talk about your future plans?" I ventured, my voice trembling slightly. He glanced up, an eyebrow raised, skepticism etched across his features. "What's the point? You wouldn't understand anyway," he retorted, his tone sharp enough to cut through the air. It stung, and I felt a heat rise to my cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and hurt. I wanted to defend myself, to explain the weight of grief I was carrying, but instead, I felt my resolve falter. Margaret paused her movements, sensing the tension, her eyes darting between us. "Let's just focus on the good memories today, shall we?" she suggested, her voice soothing but lacking the authority to mend our fractured connection. I could see the worry etched on her face, a reflection of my own turmoil. I longed for understanding, for Ethan to see me as more than just a shadow of his former life, but with each attempt I felt the walls between us grow taller. As I stood there, my heart pounding with a mix of sadness and hope, I realized this was a pivotal moment. I needed to find my voice, to assert my worth in a world that felt increasingly unkind. The memory of Ethan's words echoed in my mind, fueling a determination that was both frightening and exhilarating. I had to try again, I couldn't let despair win. In that moment, I resolved to confront the painful truth of our relationship, even if it meant facing rejection once more. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the challenge ahead. The kitchen felt smaller, the air thicker, as I prepared to navigate the treacherous waters of my son's anger, hoping to find a glimpse of understanding beneath the surface. The morning light crept through the curtains of my bedroom, casting a pale glow over the disarray of my life. The smell of stale coffee lingered in the air, mixing with the faint scent of lavender from the potpourri I had set out the day before. I could hear the muffled sounds of the world outside, birds chirping, a car engine starting, and children laughing, reminders of a life I felt increasingly disconnected from. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of my grief settling heavily on my shoulders. It was a weight that felt both familiar and suffocating, like an old coat I couldn't bear to take off. Flashbacks of the funeral flooded my mind, and I could see Ethan standing there, his expression twisted in anger and hurt. My heart squeezed at the memory of his words, sharp as daggers, piercing through the fog of my sorrow. "You're useless now. You've lost Dad, and now you've lost yourself," he had said, his voice laced with resentment. In that moment, shock had paralyzed me. I remembered the way his hands trembled, fists clenched at his sides, as if he were ready to unleash a storm. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had formed between us, but I felt frozen, as if the air had thickened around me, trapping my emotions in a vice. After the funeral, I had tried to talk to him, to make sense of his anger, but my attempts felt futile. I stood in the kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the empty space where he usually sat at the table. I could see him staring out the window, lost in thought, and the tension in the room was palpable. I cleared my throat, my heart racing as I approached him. "Ethan, can we talk about what happened? I don't understand why you're so angry with me. I'm still here. I'm still your mother," I said, my voice trembling with vulnerability. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with frustration. "You don't get it, do you? You're just pretending everything is fine. You've become this shell of a person, and you expect me to just accept it?" The hurt in his tone stung deeper than I could have anticipated, a raw wound that refused to heal. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a mix of anger and despair. "I'm trying, Ethan. I'm trying to navigate this just like you are," I shot back, the words spilling out before I could rein them in. His silence was deafening, a chasm of unspoken words that grew wider between us. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, the sting of betrayal coursing through me. I wanted to shake him, to make him understand the depth of my pain, but I was met with more hostility. "You think you're the only one hurting? You think I'm not grieving?" He spat back, his voice rising. The realization that my son was struggling with his own grief only intensified my feelings of helplessness. In that moment, I felt my heart shatter all over again, the pieces scattering like glass across the floor. I turned away, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill over. How had we come to this? The love I had for him felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by this new reality of anger and resentment. I longed for the days when we shared laughter and warmth, but those moments felt like fragments of a life that was slipping through my fingers. In a last-ditch effort to reconnect, I suggested a family outing, a chance for us to breathe and perhaps heal. "Let's go to the park, just the two of us. We can talk, take a walk, remember the good times," I offered, my voice softening with hope. But Ethan's response was swift and harsh. "What do you think that will change? You think we can just forget everything?" Each word landed like a punch to my gut, leaving me gasping for breath. His rejection felt like a door slamming shut, echoing in the hollow space between us. I watched as he turned away, the tension in his body radiating a need for distance. The warmth of the sun seemed to dim in that moment, and I felt the shadows closing in around me. I realized that my attempts to mend our relationship were not only met with resistance, but also with a growing chasm of misunderstanding. I sat on the edge of my bed, feeling more alone than ever, as the weight of my failures pressed down on me. How could I hope to connect with him when he saw me as a stranger? The road ahead felt daunting, fraught with obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Yet, beneath the hurt and anger, a flicker of resolve ignited within me. I would not let this be the end. I would find a way to reach Ethan, to show him that I was still here, still fighting. Despite the doubts that clawed at my heart, I clung to that resolve, knowing that I had to keep trying, no matter how difficult it felt. As I took a deep breath, I pushed myself to rise from the bed, determination coursing through my veins. I would not let our story end in bitterness. I would reclaim my voice, my worth, and somehow I would reach him. I could not allow grief to define me or fracture our bond further. I had to believe that there was still a chance for us, even in the face of such profound pain. The rain drummed softly against the roof, a soothing yet melancholic rhythm that filled the air with a sense of isolation. I sat in the dim light of the living room, surrounded by the clutter of our lives, remnants of happier times now tainted by grief. The scent of wet earth wafted in through the slightly ajar window, mingling with the faint smell of stale coffee, a reminder of my futile attempts to find clarity amid the chaos of emotions swirling within me. Ethan hadn't spoken to me since that disastrous family dinner. I could still feel the sting of his words cutting through the air, his accusation of my uselessness echoing in my mind like a relentless mantra. My heart ached for a connection, yet it felt as if an invisible wall had risen between us, one that I could neither see nor dismantle. I reached for my phone, contemplating calling him, but my fingers hovered over the screen, paralyzed by doubt. What would I even say? I thought back to the last time we had shared a moment of laughter, before the funeral, before everything fell apart. The memory felt like a flickering light in the darkness, brief, beautiful, and ultimately unreachable. I could almost hear his laughter, warm and genuine, a sound that now seemed like a cruel joke. The weight of regret settled heavily on my chest. I was desperate to mend our relationship, but every attempt I made felt like throwing pebbles against a fortress, each one bouncing back, mocking my efforts. Taking a deep breath, I decided to try again. I picked up my phone, my heart racing as I dialed his number. The ringing tone was a reminder of the distance between us, each ring a countdown to the moment I would either connect with him or face another rejection. When he finally picked up, I felt my voice tremble, laden with emotion. "Ethan, can we talk?" I asked, my words barely breaking through the chasm of silence that had grown between us. "What's there to talk about?" he replied, his tone flat and dismissive. I could sense his anger simmering beneath the surface, a tsunami of emotion that threatened to engulf me. It was a stark contrast to the warmth I had once known, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I fought to keep my composure, feeling the frustration bubbling within me. "I want to understand why you feel this way," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremors of fear and determination. "You're my son and I love you, I just don't know how to reach you anymore." There was a long pause and I could hear his breathing on the other end, steady yet filled with tension. "You say that, but it doesn't feel like it. You're always just there. I need more than that, Mom. You've become a shadow of yourself since Dad died. It's like you've given up." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I felt the sting of tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I knew he was right. I had been lost in my grief, but I was trying to find my way back. I swallowed hard, fighting against the wave of emotions threatening to pull me under. "I'm trying, Ethan. Every day is a struggle, but I want to be there for you. I want to be the mother you need, not just a ghost in this house. It's hard to believe that when you don't even talk to me." "I don't know who you are anymore," he shot back, his voice thick with resentment. Each word felt like a dagger, piercing through my remaining resolve. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I knew that wouldn't help. "I'm still here, I promise. I just need time to heal. I thought maybe we could work through this together, but it feels like I'm reaching for a hand that's always pulling away." His silence was deafening, and in that moment I realized how isolated I had become. I needed to show him that I was still capable of love and strength, that I wouldn't let his rejection define me. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the reality of the situation. "Ethan, please, let's meet somewhere. We can talk about this face to face. I want to listen." After what felt like an eternity, he finally relented, albeit begrudgingly. "Fine, a cafe tomorrow at 2. But don't expect me to just forgive you for everything." The call ended, and I placed the phone down, my heart racing with a mix of hope and dread. I felt like a tightrope walker balancing precariously above a chasm of uncertainty, every step forward fraught with the potential for disaster. But I knew I had to try. I had to face my fears and fight for my son, for us. Tomorrow would be the first step toward healing, and I had to believe it would be enough. The tension in the air was palpable as I prepared for the family dinner, an event that had transformed from a hopeful attempt at reconciliation into a battleground of unspoken words. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of roasted chicken and freshly baked bread, yet the scents did little to alleviate the knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I could hear the clatter of dishes as my hands trembled while arranging the table settings, each fork and knife a reminder of the fragile truce I was trying to establish with Ethan. As the family gathered, I plastered on a smile, but my heart raced with the fear of rejection. Ethan entered the room, his expression guarded, eyes averted. The laughter that usually accompanied our family meals felt distant, as if we were all actors in a play, desperately trying to ignore the glaring absence of authenticity. My mother, Margaret, busied herself with the flowers at the center of the table, casting worried glances at me, silently urging me to find a way to bridge the gap between Ethan and me. I took a deep breath and attempted to break the silence, my voice a whisper against the backdrop of clinking glasses. "Ethan, can we talk?" I asked, my heart pounding as I braced myself for his response. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face before it hardened again. "What's there to talk about?" he replied, his tone sharp, leaving no room for negotiation. The sting of his words hit me like a cold shower, but I refused to back down. I was determined to mend our relationship, no matter how uncomfortable the journey might be. "I know things have been rough since Dad's passing, and I want to understand how you're feeling. I miss you and I want us to be okay again," I said, my voice trembling with vulnerability. The moment hung in the air, heavy with unacknowledged emotions, and I could see the conflict reflected in his eyes. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a flicker of recognition in Ethan's gaze, but it was quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. "You think it's that easy? Just because you say you want to talk, everything will magically be fine?" His words were laced with bitterness, echoing the hurt that lingered between us. The weight of disappointment settled over me like a thick fog, but I refused to let it extinguish my resolve. "I'm trying, Ethan. I'm really trying to reach out to you to show you that I care. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to fix them. We can do this together," I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. I could feel the warmth of tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, but I fought to hold them back, not wanting to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. He hesitated, and for a moment the icy exterior melted just slightly. Yet, before I could grasp it, he turned away, shaking his head as if to dismiss the possibility of reconciliation. "You say that now, but what happens when it gets hard again? When you choose to ignore me like you always do?" His accusation cut deeper than I anticipated. The dinner continued in strained silence, punctuated only by the clinking of forks on plates, a dissonant symphony that highlighted the cracks in our relationship. I caught my mother's gaze, filled with concern and helplessness, and I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey toward healing. I had to keep trying. I couldn't give up on him, on us. My heart ached with the urgency of my cause, and I steeled myself for the challenges ahead, determined to reclaim our bond one step at a time. The storm outside mirrored the tempest in my heart, rain drumming against the windows like a frantic pulse. I stood in the living room, the shadows flickering from the poorly lit lamp casting ghostly shapes around me. The air was thick with tension, heavy and suffocating, as I faced Ethan, who sat in the corner with his arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The silence stretched between us, taut like a bowstring, ready to snap at any moment. I could feel my pulse quickening, a drumbeat of fear and anger that resonated within me. Memories of our laughter, once a soothing balm, now felt like bitter reminders of what had been lost. I took a deep breath, grounding myself as I thought back to the moment he had unleashed his cruel words. I remembered the sting of betrayal, the way it had reverberated through my chest. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" Ethan's voice cut through the silence, bitter and sharp. "You've lost everything, and yet you act like you still have a say in my life." His words were like daggers, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, embarrassment mixing with outrage. How dare he reduce my grief to a mere punchline in this twisted game of family dynamics? I clenched my fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms, and summoned the courage to respond. "I may have lost your father, but I will not let you strip me of my dignity too," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging within. It was a moment of clarity amid chaos, a realization that I had the strength to stand my ground. Ethan's expression shifted, confusion flickering across his face. "What does that even mean?" he shot back, his bravado faltering slightly. I could see the cracks in his armor, and for the first time I felt a glimmer of hope. This confrontation could be the catalyst for change. Perhaps we could peel back the layers of hurt and find a way to heal. "It means I'm tired of being your scapegoat, Ethan. I'm not here to carry the weight of your anger alone," I replied, my voice stronger now, resonating with conviction. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. This was my moment, a turning point in our frayed relationship. He shifted in his seat, his gaze dropping to the floor, a flicker of remorse crossing his features. I could sense his internal struggle, and in that moment I realized that I had not only confronted him but also my own fears. This was it. I was reclaiming my voice, my identity, and I would not allow the storm to drown me. As the rain continued to pour outside, I took a step closer, my heart racing but my resolve unwavering. "I want to understand you, but I need you to meet me halfway. Let's stop this cycle of pain together," I said, vulnerability spilling into my voice as the walls between us began to crumble. Ethan looked up, surprise etched in his features, and for the first time I saw a flicker of something more than anger in his eyes. Was it fear? Or perhaps a glimpse of understanding? This could be the beginning of healing, a path forward that we both desperately needed. The confrontation had ignited something within me, a fierce determination to reclaim my worth in this fractured family dynamic. I had faced the storm, and I was ready to navigate the aftermath, no matter how long it took to find our way back to each other. The garden was dimly lit by the fading light of dusk, a serene backdrop that belied the storm brewing within me. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil, and as I sat on the old wooden bench, I felt the rough texture beneath my fingertips, grounding me in my tumultuous thoughts. My heart raced with determination as I pulled out a small notebook, its pages yellowed with time and filled with scribbles of half-formed ideas. This was my sanctuary, a place where I could outline my next steps, not just for revenge, but for reclaiming my agency after Ethan's cruel words had shattered my sense of self. I took a deep breath, the cool evening air filling my lungs as I recalled the sting of his declaration, the way it echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. It was time to confront him, to show Ethan that I wouldn't be pushed aside any longer. With each stroke of my pen, I wrote down my thoughts, piecing together a plan that felt both empowering and terrifying. "I will not let him define me," I scribbled fervently, my hand shaking slightly as I committed to this mantra. The determination surged within me, fueling a fire I hadn't known existed. As I wrote, memories of our shared laughter and moments of joy flickered in my mind, but they were overshadowed by the hurt I felt. Could I really bridge this chasm? I hesitated as I recalled our last encounter, the bitter words spewing from his mouth like venom. The thought of facing him again sent a shiver down my spine, yet I knew I had to do it. I couldn't allow the cycle of hurt to continue. It was time to address the elephant in the room head-on. With each point I outlined, I felt a sense of clarity washing over me. I needed to communicate my feelings, not just about his outburst, but also about my own struggles with grief and loss. It wouldn't be easy, but I resolved to stand firm and speak my truth. I could envision the confrontation. I would express my pain while also listening to his anger. Perhaps he felt as lost as I did, trapped in a web of grief that had ensnared us both. As I closed the notebook, a newfound sense of resolve settled over me. I was ready to face Ethan, ready to confront the darkness that had seeped into our relationship. The path ahead seemed daunting, but I was no longer the passive figure waiting for things to change. I had a plan, and with it, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. It was time to reclaim my voice and redefine our relationship, even if it meant navigating the rough waters of our shared pain. I stood up from the bench, the coolness of the evening air invigorating me as I prepared for the confrontation that would either break us or pave the way for healing. The air in the living room was thick with an unspoken tension, the kind that clung to your skin and made every breath feel laborious. I stood in front of Ethan, my heart racing as I prepared to confront him. The soft hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air, yet all I could focus on was the weight of my emotions, heavy like lead in my chest. Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his expression a mix of defiance and hurt. I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface, and it mirrored my own. Memories of our happier times flashed through my mind, his laughter, his bright smile, but they felt like distant echoes now, overshadowed by the pain that had come between us. "Ethan, we need to talk about what happened," I said, my voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety that coursed through me. I needed him to see that this was about more than just our recent argument. It was about healing the rift that had formed between us. He scoffed, the sound sharp and cutting. "What's the point, Mom? You never listen to me anyway. You just want me to fall in line like everyone else." His words stung, igniting a fire within me that I had been trying to contain. I took a breath, the air feeling thick as I prepared for my response. "I'm not trying to control you, Ethan. I want to understand." I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my ears. "When you said those cruel things, it shattered me. I felt like I was losing you, and I can't bear that. I need you to know that your words matter. They hurt. They change everything between us." The silence that followed was deafening, each second stretching into eternity as we stood there, emotions swirling like a tempest. I could see the conflict in his eyes, a flicker of realization breaking through the anger. "You think it's easy for me? You think I wanted to say those things?" His voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability lurking beneath his tough exterior. I reached out, my fingers brushing against his arm, searching for a connection. "No, I don't, but we can't keep hurting each other like this. Let's talk, really talk. We can't let this pain define us. I want to understand why you feel this way, and I want you to understand me too." Ethan shifted, his defenses wavering as he considered my words. I could feel the tension begin to dissipate, replaced by a cautious hope. Maybe I've been pushing you away because I'm scared too, scared of losing you after everything, but I don't want to feel this way anymore either." The admission hung in the air, a fragile bridge forming between us. I could see his shoulders relax, the tightness in his expression easing ever so slightly. In that moment, I realized that we were both grappling with our fears, fear of loss, fear of isolation, fear of the unknown. "Let's start over, Ethan." "Can we do that?" I asked, my voice softer now, filled with sincerity. The walls that had separated us felt less daunting, and I could see the flicker of hope in his eyes. "Yeah, I think I'd like that," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The tension began to melt away, replaced by a tentative understanding that had the potential to heal the wounds between us. As I stood there, a sense of release washed over me, the weight of our struggles slowly lifting, leaving room for the possibility of a renewed bond. Maybe, just maybe, we could redefine our relationship after all. The air in the living room felt lighter, infused with the warmth of reconciliation. Sunlight poured through the windows, casting golden rays that danced on our faces, illuminating the remnants of tension that had once filled the space. I glanced around, taking in the familiar surroundings, the family photos lining the walls, each frame a testament to moments we had shared, both joyful and painful. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of baked goods, a comforting backdrop to our fragile peace. Ethan sat across from me, his expression a mixture of uncertainty and hope. I could see the shadows of our past conflict lingering in his eyes, a reminder of the harsh words that had once driven a wedge between us. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the conversation ahead. "I know I hurt you, Ethan, and I'm truly sorry for how I reacted. I let my grief cloud my judgment, and I never meant to make you feel alone in this," I said, my voice steady yet laced with vulnerability. He shifted in his seat, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt, a small gesture that spoke volumes of his internal struggle. "It's just been so hard, Mom. I felt like you were shutting me out, and I didn't know how to reach you," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. I could see the weight of his emotions pressing down on him, and my heart ached at the realization of how deeply our rift had affected him. "I was drowning in my own pain, and I didn't see how much you were hurting too. I thought I was protecting you by keeping my feelings to myself, but I see now that it only pushed us further apart," I confessed, my gaze locked onto his. The silence that followed felt heavy, but it was a silence filled with the possibility of healing. After a moment, Ethan finally nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. Maybe we can work on this together. I don't want to lose you, Mom. I miss us, he said, his voice softening. I felt a rush of relief wash over me, a glimmer of hope igniting in my chest. I miss us too, Ethan. Let's promise to communicate better, to be more honest about our feelings. We can navigate this grief together, I replied, the sincerity of my words hanging in the air. I could see the tension in his shoulders begin to ease, the walls he had built slowly crumbling as we reached across the chasm that had formed between us. In that moment, I knew we were taking the first steps toward rebuilding our relationship, one conversation at a time. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but as I looked into Ethan's eyes, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We were both willing to fight for our bond, and that was all that mattered. As we embraced, the warmth of our connection enveloped us like a comforting blanket, a reminder that even in the depths of loss, there was still hope for healing. I felt a sense of acceptance wash over me, a quiet understanding that while the road ahead would be challenging, we were no longer alone. Together, we would face whatever came next, hand in hand, ready to embrace the future with open hearts. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue through the living room windows, and I found myself sitting in the familiar armchair that had always been a refuge. The soft fabric cradled me, and I breathed in the lingering scent of lavender from the candles I had lit earlier, a calming presence in the aftermath of our tumultuous journey. I reflected on the changes that had swept through our family, the cracks that had formed, and through patience and understanding, begun to mend. Clara and I had shared countless conversations since that pivotal family gathering, each one peeling back layers of hurt and revealing the love that had always existed beneath. I could still feel the warmth of her hand in mine, a tangible reminder of our commitment to healing. In those moments, I learned that vulnerability was not a weakness but a bridge that connected us. The laughter that had once felt so distant now echoed through our home, mingling with the sounds of everyday life, a symphony